The show is now 3 years old. It was 3 years old as of October, and I kind of played hooky a little bit in 2019. So I want to hit 2020 in a big way. And we're going to start recording these shows behind the scenes and then releasing them on the iTunes. So you'll see a lot more activity and stuff like that on YouTube and Facebook when we're doing this. And I'm planning on having a really, really good time doing that. As some of you know, we just launched our mastermind, Inner Circle Elite. We have a lot of really good things going on. So if you're interested in checking out and being part of a community, being part of something great, go to beinthisroom.com and check it out. Always email me at donaflip.com if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And of course, if you want to know about some of the other stuff we have going on behind the scenes. Today, my guest is the sales legend, the beast, John Martinez. I had the pleasure of interviewing John about 3 years ago. I don't know, John, were you new to the scene then about 3 years ago? Were you just kind of getting your
Newer, definitely newer than I am now. And I remember that interview because I was in my basement on my couch, just as excited as I could be to talk to you.
Good. Yeah. I remember seeing a Facebook post where you had offered to do some free advice or something. I don't remember the post exactly, but I think you got some pushback about that. And you posted about, why if I'm offering to help people, are people questioning that? And I saw that post. Do you remember that post?
I don't, but that sounds very familiar.
And that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you, because you came from a very giving space, and I've gotten to know you over the last 3 years. And while you do have obviously some trainings and services out there, you do continue to give a lot of really good free advice and content out there in the community. And you've helped a lot of investors. So what's your journey been like, entering the real estate space and training companies and people, like the last 3 years? What's it been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a lot of growth personally, it's been fun because as I've grown, I've seen the businesses that I work with grow. So it's this, we're on parallel tracks, and it's exciting to be a part of. I really fell in love with the real estate space over this last 3 years, with maybe not even the real estate space, but the investors that I work with. Just, gung-ho entrepreneurs, getting it done, building cool things. So a lot of growth on my end, a lot of growth in the industry as a whole, and just it's been exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely made a name for yourself. You are probably the only person in the industry I know of that's basically a verb. I actually have a shirt that says you've been John Martinez. So, or you just got John Martinez. So it's neat to kind of see that happen. Why the real estate investing industry? Like what was the need that you felt like was there that you could tackle, you could make better?
Yeah, man, I wish I could say I spotted something early on, but the truth of the matter is, I didn't. What happened was I accidentally got pulled into it, and got pulled into it in a big way, and it took over my business. I wish I could say, you know what, I looked at all these industries and this is the one that needed me, and I had the strategic approach, but no, I trained a call center actually, and the call center produced leads for real estate agents and investors. And one of the investors that they call on, or would continuously call on to sell leads to, he noticed that something had changed, and they told them that I was in there training their salespeople and rewrote scripts. And anyways, we got a hold of each other. He told me about the real estate investment space. He was a wholesaler, and he asked if I'd come and train his people. And I said, I'll give it a shot. And 3 months later, I'm probably training 30 teams plus. 3 to 6 months after that, probably 50, 100, and it just blew up. So I eventually turned off all of the rest of the industries I was in and went all in on REI.
Very cool. So, I have had people from different industries come into my organization from time to time, different sales training backgrounds, or been trained, I guess, differently. Yeah. And your sales approach is different than a lot of the approaches I see other companies train people in doing, if that makes sense. So what do you feel like is the advantage to the way that you train acquisitions reps and people to sell and close versus some other industries out there?
Yeah, so I'd say it's probably, thanks for the question, by the way, it's probably twofold. First, it's the way we train, and second, it's what we train. What we train is everywhere. It's the spin methodology. It's pieces from, some stuff that's associated with Sandler. all the stuff, the stuff that I liked from those. I've been through a lot of trainings, and the stuff I like from all the trainings I've been through over time. It's already been out there. I really traced back the stuff that really worked to why does it work. So I started getting into behavioral psychology and all that kind of nerdy decision making stuff, and I got into that. So basically, I started with what I knew worked. I figured out why it worked, and then I think we were able to train pretty well, since that's the perspective we came at it from. And it's all non-pushy, non-manipulative, above board type of sales process where you could literally tell your prospect, here's what we're going to talk about. Here's my process. Here's why we're doing it. And here's what I hope the outcome is. So it feels good to the prospect. There's no pressure. It feels good to the salesperson. They don't feel like they're pushy. So it feels good. And it's stuff that happens to really, really work, backed up by data. So that's what we train. Over the last 2 or 3 years, I think we've gotten really good at the training piece of it. Even this last, I'd say 12 months, every time we do a training call, I tell my wife, that's the best one we've ever done on this topic. And what we got really good at, and this was completely by accident too, just, most improvements in business. We stopped at some point in time training the us versus them mentality, where there's these salespeople over here, and then there's these home sellers or these prospects, and we don't get them. They do weird things. They mislead us. They hide. They don't return our calls. We stopped that, and we started training from kind of what we call an inside out methodology, where all the first 30, 40 minutes of our sales training every week is, just me asking the group questions, going, how do you feel when this happens? What do you do when you're in this situation? Have you ever had this happen to you? What can you learn from that? What does it mean? And as a group, whether it's 100 or 200 people on the call, we start learning about human behavior. And then we transition in at the end of the call and we say, well, do you think your prospects do the same thing? And all these light bulbs go off and they go, yeah, they're humans too. They're exactly like me. Now I get why they do the things they do. It's completely natural. And then we just go, well, here's one question to ask. Here's 2 things to say that'll stop that. So our approach of understanding human behavior, translating that to your prospect and really understanding and feeling like you're on the same team, and then just a couple quick actionable items, that's now our secret sauce, I guess.
Right. I know that you're also big on doing some takeaway stuff like that, like your famous text. And
Yeah.
I also know, in just kind of training our own sales team here, that our nature, I think, as business people or acquisitions reps, is to be scared to take away to use that takeaway, right? So
Yeah.
how important do you think those takeaways are to closing? Because I know that's an objection I get to with my team. I'm like, send this, send John's text or do this takeaway, and they'll look at me like deer in the headlights. Like, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to shut this seller down? Like, how important do you think that method is to getting a seller to communicate back to you, or to open up or to close?
I think it's critically important. I think it's absolutely crucial, not just as a tactic, which works great as a tactic or a tool in different scenarios, like when prospects go dark, but just as an overall mindset. You need to, I think, any salesperson needs to go into a conversation almost being reluctant, being skeptical, if you will. Because what that does, essentially, no matter how you use it as an overall approach, as a mindset, or as a tool now and then, what it does is it relieves all pressure from the sales situation. And we all know this, because if you think about any situation where a salesperson is trying to get you to do something, or anyone's trying to get you to do something, well, it's a natural tendency to push back and resist. Mm-hmm. And we all know, like the girl who plays hard to get and those types of stories, we all know naturally that, hey, when we can't have something, we really, really want it. It's stuff we already understand. It's just scary when you want something so bad, like a sale. It's scary to give somebody permission to tell you no, or to back away from the deal a little bit. But the truth of the matter is, it works tremendously well. The only thing that stops it from working is when we get in our own heads and we're scared of it.
Which I think a lot of people do. I like the fact you use the girl that plays hard to get, because I always talk to my team about, it's like going on the first date. You don't want to talk about marriage and 5 kids on the first date. You don't want to go in for the kiss too early. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of sales reps acquisitions teams do that. They go in for the kiss too early, and your method is about creating a situation where you're chased, essentially.
Yeah.
You know.
I've never used those words, but that is probably the best way to explain it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I personally, I think it's great, but and I use it, and I've learned that flipping the power,
Yeah.
the position of power is what's important. I think is what it really comes down to. So, what do you think some of the biggest mistakes that you see some companies make when training their salespeople and implementing some of the sales processes that are out there?
Right. So I think, there's a few really common ones. One is allowing their salespeople to cherry pick, look at leads, and with just a couple pieces of data, decide who's worth talking to and who's not worth talking to. Now, of course, we need to qualify leads. There's some things that, some deals that are never going to happen no matter what. They're outside of our wheelhouse. They're in a bad neighborhood. They're so far upside down, whatever it is. And I get that. But prejudging leads based on just one thing someone says, hey, I'm just taking, I just want a best price, for example, or I'm talking to a few people, or don't lowball me. Taking one little thing like that and saying there's no way this deal is going to happen is a huge mistake, because anyone who's done this, been in this business for, any amount of time at all, knows that tons and tons of conversations that start that way end up in a deal. So I think that's a massive mistake. People are kind of throwing away deals before they have a chance to vet them out fully. I'd say another mistake is probably at the end of the sales call, giving salespeople permission to do endless follow-ups. So, a lot of salespeople don't want to give up on a deal, but also don't want to, it can get uncomfortable to close it if you don't know how to close it correctly. So what happens is a lot of investors and owners allow their sales teams to come back to the office with maybes, with, we just got to do this one thing. They've just got to talk to this person. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And when they start accepting it from their salespeople, acquisition agents start doing it more and more. And basically what's happening is a lot of deals that could have been closed are either delayed or more likely lost altogether to the competition. So those are two really big, very, very common mistakes I see a lot.
And I can't agree more, especially with the pre-vetting of a lead. I have been a victim of that myself. I did my own acquisitions like most of us do when we start our own business. And I remember a guy who called me about a property, and he told me, I just fixed this house up, but I need to sell it. And, I did put all this work into it. And I don't know why I thought he'd want retail. So I blew him off. And then he called me a second time and we had a conversation. He's like, I need to sell. I got the situation. I just dumped a bunch of money in this house. It's in great, perfect condition. Come look at it. And I blew him off again. The third time he calls me, I figured this guy's going to hound me. I'm going to go to this property. I go out to the property. He did do work to the property. Granted, the quality of work wasn't great. It was all stuff I was going to have to rip out again. But again, you got a seller who has his perception, right? And then there's the reality of the work. But what struck me about that conversation was when I got to the end and I asked him what he wanted for the property, he's like, well, I'll take 130. And the ARV on the house was 280. And so I just about fell over when he said that. And I made the comment, I'm like, well, let me go back to the office and crunch the numbers real fast. So I run back to the office. I call him and I'm like, would you take 125? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So, but that's a great example of, like, in my head, I thought it wasn't a deal and I blew it off.
Yeah. And that's also, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's also a great example of that playing hard to get that we talked about, even if you don't know you're doing it, right?
Right.
They start coming after you. And even whether you knew what you were doing or not, I'm sure you did, obviously, but the 130, instead of just jumping on it, which a lot of people do, just like, absolutely, those hit my numbers, let's do it. That a lot of times causes sellers to go, whoa, that was way too quick and easy. Am I leaving money on the table? Hold on a second. You taking that extra second to go, okay, give me some time to crunch the numbers. Can we do 125? That relieved any fear that he had of leaving money on the table. Bang, done deal. So much in that story right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell one more, because that's a great example of a mistake I made. I went to a property and I was talking to the seller, got the whys and the reason why he wanted to move. He couldn't stand his neighbors. There was a half a dozen other reasons why he wanted to move. And then when I asked him what his number was, he gave me his number. And without even thinking about it, And I knew the words were wrong. And the second it came out of my mouth, I went, oh, that's not bad. We're not that far apart. And his whole body language changed. His whole demeanor changed. And suddenly he went from talking to me about selling his house to not sure if he's ready to sell. And so taking the time to pause and continue to play hard to get and not jump on, oh, that number works for me or we're not too far apart, I think is critically important to the process, because I don't know how many times I personally felt like I left money on the table or lost money because something was too easy, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, so. I 110%. I love this conversation. Yeah. This is the real stuff that happens every single day.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So, okay. So, so I've already asked you about mistakes and stuff like that. Yeah. What do you, like, give me some ideas of some things that acquisitions people can do to be more successful. We talked kind of about the concept of, and the theory behind the training, but give me, maybe we can role play. I don't know, but give me some examples of like some tools they can use.
Yeah. So, I think it's really, really important. There's a number of ways to accomplish this, but it's really, really important to have an open, honest conversation. Like you were saying, right? When you tell your stories about deals that close, it was, we kind of got away from the house with, what are the whys and what can I actually help you with? And let's talk about what you're trying to accomplish here. In order to even have that conversation, though, you've got to be at a place where the other person's open. And a lot of sales trainers, as they should, talk about rapport, and rapport is important. But one super easy way to accomplish that is just by going into it, letting someone know exactly what's going to go on. So they're not preoccupied thinking about how long is this going to take, or are you going to try to, buy my house for too cheap, or is this going to be uncomfortable? Take all those fears out of the air as quickly as possible about what's going to happen, and letting people know, hey, no matter what happens, we're fine. It's okay. Just doing that at the beginning, early and as often as possible, I think really keeps that conversation, just flowing. Just, hey, this is how this usually works. We chat about this. I'm going to, obviously ask you about the house so I can start figuring out how much I can pay. I want to pay as much as I possibly can, as I'm sure you want me to. And I've got some questions just about kind of your situation and what we need, how we need to structure all of this so it actually works for you if we agree on the number. And ask me anything at any time. And by the way, at the end of all this, if we work something out, that's awesome. If not, no hard feelings here. I hope no hard feelings there. Let's just give this thing our best shot, put our best foot forward. Something like that early and often just keeps that pressure really low and starts to lower the guard so you can ask the right questions.
Yeah, I think that's important to have that conversation and to set the standard, right? To set the, what do you call it, pre-agreement or
set the stage.
Set the stage, so that you can really have a conversation about creating a win-win situation for everybody, and not have somebody that's on guard, And sellers these days are so much more with Zillow, which can be completely false sometimes, but in other avenues, I wouldn't say they're not in this. They're more informed, and what options they have out there. There's more competition. So being able to really have a situation where they feel comfortable with you, I think is really, really important. And the way you describe that, disarms people pretty easily. So yeah, pretty cool. Anything else that you feel like is a good tactic?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, but I'm trying to just think of the most important. I think another super important tactic is we talk a lot about, what, why we would do a deal, what's the why and all that kind of stuff. I think what's often missed that kills a lot of deals, or what we call deal killers, are proactively uncovering all the reasons why someone wouldn't do a deal with you. Because when you ask what would slow you down, what would stop you, what are all the reasons why this wouldn't make sense, what you end up with are sometimes things that you can actually help with. You had the conversation like, yeah, I don't know, I don't know what I'm going to do with all the junk in the house, or this or that. If you don't have those conversations, sometimes they could just say, let me think about it, and the deal fizzles. If you ask about it and figure out about it, sometimes you could do stuff about that, and it's simple. I know tons and tons of investors who've lost deals because of silly stuff they easily could have done, but they just didn't have that conversation. And it makes sense why people don't, because no salesperson wants to hear why someone wouldn't do a deal, right? But then you also uncover all kinds of stuff that maybe you can't do anything about, you don't have a quick fix for. But just talking about it and sorting it out and helping them have clarity on the conversation also eliminates a lot of maybes and think it overs, because sometimes you just talk through it and they push past it. Sometimes you talk through it and they decide it's a hard no, but I'd rather have a yes or no any day. And I'd rather even have a no any day than follow up with me for the next 4 years. So I think that's really important, is to not be afraid of the reasons why they would. I mean, by all means, if you don't ask, those reasons are still there. But if you do ask, you increase your odds of closing the deal. So just proactively taking the time and think, why wouldn't you? What are your major concerns? We talked about all the reasons why you would. What might slow you down, stop you altogether? Are there better options for you? I'm not sure at this point. Let's just put it out on the table and figure it out.
I agree 100%. I started knocking on doors when I started in 2003. I started knocking on doors for pre-foreclosures, and the idea of solving problems and getting to the underlying reason why, and helping a lot of people with pre-foreclosures. They have their head in their sand. They think that the problem is going to be solved, and sometimes you got to, in the conversation, ask questions and listen and lead them and guide them to how their problem is going to be solved by working with you. And alleviate, again, those concerns and those reasons and stuff like that. And it was really good for me, I think, to kind of cut my teeth in that arena, because when people, especially with pre-foreclosure, and people are having problems, they're in distress, they have all kinds of illusions or fantasies, or they just are not going to solve their problem. And so guiding them through that process is so, at any level, I think is important, but so much more important in that one for sure. And it caused me to learn to ask more questions and get to the yes or the no a lot quicker. So I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, very, very, very tough sale. I mean, anyone who's done any type of door-to-door type of sales or conversation or lead gen or whatever you want to call it are some of the best salespeople on earth, because especially in this situation, this is like a double whammy for a salesperson, because not only is it kind of cold calling face to face, when someone's in distress, again, human nature, what do we do when we're in distress? Well, fight or flight, right? So we either fight, that's not fun to deal with, or we just hide from the problem altogether. We don't want to talk about it. So if you're able to go to a door, talk to someone who's in high distress, where sometimes I'm sure they fought and they called you names or told you to leave, and sometimes they try to, bury their head in the sand and avoid it altogether, that makes an amazing salesperson, because that's one of the toughest sales scenarios out there.
Agreed, 100%. So I want to shift gears for a minute. I know that you work with your wife, and that is a topic that I think you can talk a lot about. A lot of people in this industry, they're husband and wife teams. I noticed in a lot of the companies that I've had the opportunity to work with and interact with. So what advice would you give to people who are working with their spouse? Like, how you and your wife, I've met your wife and I've interacted with you too. You seem to have a really good dynamic. Like, how have you come to that space working together, and because that can be hard.
It didn't start out that way. I'm actually sitting at her desk in her chair right now while she's out running around with the kiddos. But I think the biggest thing, the number one thing, was learning what our strengths were, trusting in the other person to take care of whatever those were for the other, and staying in our lanes and out of each other's business. If she's looking over my shoulder, we kind of, fought a little bit. If I was looking over her shoulder or anything like that, same thing. But as soon as we got to the point where I was like, you know what, she's going to figure it. If she doesn't know, she'll figure it out. If she needs help, she'll ask. But she's a brilliant person, and we learn to stay in our lanes, leave each other alone. It's beautiful. I mean, it's awesome to work with my wife. And I didn't think, there was a time where I didn't think I'd ever say that. Right. But it works really. My wife does all the sales for us at this point. So, and she's not a salesperson, but she is perfect for that position, because one of her strengths is, if anyone knows me, I know sales, but I'm an introvert. So I try not to have a lot of conversations.
Right.
It's weird, I know, but she loves talking to people. So she is the best person in our tiny little organization to handle sales, because it gives her energy. And I'm better at the strategy thing, because I can think 3 or 4 steps ahead and identify problems before they happen in some cases and all that. So as long as we stay in our lanes, it just works very well.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that is a challenge. My wife doesn't work with me, and we've had to work out our dynamic in how to have conversations about what I do and what she does. So I can imagine there was some work involved in that, but you two have gotten to a good place. And any other advice you want to share on that, or you think that pretty much is a cherry on top?
That's, man, I don't think there's anything else. That's the number one thing is have your thing and stick with it, and don't
Understand
cross over.
understand each other's strengths and
Yeah.
respect the lanes. Essentially, is what I
Yes,
got out of that. So
absolutely.
Okay, over the phone or belly to belly, which one do you feel like is because that seems to be the big conversation right now in the industry. Which one do you
Yeah.
think is the better suited for closing?
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of cop out on this answer and say both, but I'm going to tell you exactly why.
Okay.
So it has changed a lot in the last 18 months or so, maybe 18 to 24 months. I've got a big pool of companies to look at. We probably went from almost 100% closing belly to belly to probably 30% of our clients now do the sales process completely over the phone. And there's probably another 10 or 15% that it's a hybrid of them both. And it really, in my opinion, is completely dependent on lead flow. And I'll explain it this way. If you want to close more deals, if you want the best conversions, the highest chance of closing every deal, belly to belly, guaranteed every single time. Right. But real life is this. Sometimes you got a 2-hour or an hour long, commute or round trip to go see somebody. Sometimes you have more leads than you can handle. And we already talked at the beginning of this call, we don't want to try to cherry pick because we're often wrong, no matter how long we've been trying.
Right.
So there comes a point in time where, you transition from having to close every closable deal, bar none, can never leave any, meat on the bone or whatever, however you want to say it. Nothing can slip through the cracks, belly to belly every time. Once you get to the point where lead flow is kind of overtaking and you don't have taking your time, and you don't have the manpower, you don't have the resources to get to all those leads, that's when it starts to make sense to switch to a hybrid model and go, let's try to close this over the phone. And if we're even remotely close and we can't get the job done, then we want to make the trip out there. Or if there's a sweetheart deal where it's, hey, we need to make sure we put our best foot forward, this one doesn't slip through the cracks because this is a sweetheart deal, I would go out and see that one. And now you have the other extreme. If you get to the point where you are drowning in leads, and no matter how many people you hire, no matter what, you are never getting out to them, or maybe it's not even possible because you're working in remote territories now, then you can close over the phone. Closing over the phone is fine. Closing belly to belly, higher conversion rates. Closing over the phone, you get to more people. So you just got to find that happy medium for wherever your business is.
Yeah, we're almost 100% closed over the phone. Our decision making was because we were in multiple markets and we had reps in all these different markets, and we had to market to keep the reps fed. We had to market to keep their schedule full. And looking at what made more sense for the business, now closing over the phone, we can market to those markets based on the rotation that makes more sense for the business than just keeping somebody's appointment book full. So that made a lot of sense for us. Because that employees, team members, acquisitions reps, especially, I think are probably the hardest, thing for all of us in this industry, is finding the right person, getting them trained properly, making sure they're hardworking and loyal, that they're not going to burn out, So for us, it just made sense to go to over the phone, and we've had some success with it. It took us a handful of months to work it out. I'm not going to lie, but I also feel like we buy a little deeper. I don't know that we get every deal we could, but I feel like the ones we're getting, the data says that we're buying a little deeper. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see where we're at. So, what advice would you give somebody that's like brand new in this industry? I know we have a lot of brand new listeners and they're going out on some of their first appointments. Like what do you think is the one thing that they need to know?
Yeah, I would say the one thing they need to know is what they need to focus on. Being early in the business, and we've all seen a lot of this, and I've trained a lot of people who are brand new to the industry. Into it, the initial, I don't know why it is, but the initial focus is, I got to share everything I know. I need to do most of the talking. I need to, queue up this killer presentation and sell this thing. And to earn their money. Hey, if I'm not talking, if I'm not sharing great information, I'm not earning the money, I'm not selling. I think if I was brand new or coaching someone brand new, I'd just say you want to do the exact opposite. Your chances are better if you know nothing about REI and you just get in there and you make sure they do all the talking and just, hey, listen, I mean, I've seen reps, not in this industry, but others just start out sales calls where it's just, listen, I'm brand new. I don't know anything about our company's products. I don't know anything about what you're looking for or why we would be better than anybody else. But what I am here to do is just figure out everything you need, and I will take it back to the team and we'll make a recommendation for that. So if we can, let's just spend our time figuring out why am I here? What prompted you to pick up the phone? What's everything you need about us? Why? How important are those different things? Let's kind of prioritize those. And then we'll give you the best solution possible. And if you like it, we'll schedule another meeting. And people who knew nothing about what they were selling were tremendously successful, because knowing nothing about what they were selling forced them to have the right conversation. So brand new, I'd say, don't worry about not knowing what you don't know. Focus 100% on the seller, and you'll do okay.
I agree 100%. So I want to give some shout outs to some people who we haven't had a whole lot of questions, but Steve Galvin, Andrea, Donald Ross, Beast Mode have made some comments here. Matt Smith wanted to say hello. David Day wants to know if he can just hire you to make calls for us. Is that possible? Can you make all the calls
Dave
for us?
Day. So, yeah, absolutely, Dave. Anytime.
Yeah. So I wish, right? Get John in the office full time. So, but yeah. Okay. So I don't see a whole lot of questions. I don't think I have any more questions for you. I think that people who don't know who you are need to crawl out from underneath their rock and get to know you. I know personally you're a great guy. I consider you a friend as much as I can for two introverts, right? So, yeah. But and you have some great training programs out there. Why don't you share? I know you have. Do you still do the free 21-day challenge thing or whatever?
Yeah. We got tons of people in that every single week. So everything's on. We got tons of free and free videos, trainings, scripts, all on our website. It's midwestrev.com, Midwest REV as in revenue.com. Or you could just Google REI Sales Academy. You'll get there. Tons of stuff there. It's pretty well laid out, so you can find anything you need and get any of it. I do want to take a second, Don, just to say, I've been in this industry now a number of years, and I've met a ton of people, and I've kind of made it my mission to try to lift up the people that I think are doing absolutely amazing things, have their heart in the right place. And I just want to say to anyone that doesn't know you that you're one of the good guys out there doing good things, really helping people. And it just, I'm happy to be associated with you. And I just wanted to say, I see it, everyone sees it. And it's been a pleasure this last few years. And I want to give you that shout out, because I think it's important that people who are doing good things, we maybe not call out those who are doing bad, but instead lift up those people that are doing the best things out there. And you're one of them. So I just wanted to take a second to share that with you.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. And that definitely means a lot coming from you, and totally humbling. So thank you very much for that. And I appreciate having you on. And did you gave away the links and everything for your stuff, right?
The links for my stuff. Just go to the website. Everything's okay, on the website. So you
threw me out with the kind words, man.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate it. So, okay. Perfect. For those of you listening on Facebook, I really appreciate you having you on. We're going to be doing these more often, and I want you to make sure that you're asking questions. I actually have access to see all the questions, to see Dave. Is there a best all around answer to I need to think about your offer? Let's ask that real quick. If somebody says I need to think about your offer, what's the best response you can give?
Yeah, for my money, and it's because I'm kind of a purist at our sales process. In my eyes, anything other than a yes is a no. So in a very nice way, letting them know that. So for me, it sounds like this. Hey, listen, I appreciate that. It's a big decision, and there's a ton of moving parts, a lot to think about. But listen, after everything we've talked about, all the reasons why, you would do this, all of your concerns, kind of weeding through all those, putting together an offer and explaining exactly how we'd structure it to try to, tackle all those things. At this point, if you're not comfortable or, just not 100% confident that that's the way to go, it probably means that this isn't going to be a fit. And that's perfectly okay. But in my eyes, and probably in yours too, we probably need, doesn't mean it's never going to happen, but at this point, let's just call it what it is right now. It's a no, and that is completely okay. So in a very kind, nurturing way, calling it what it is, because a maybe or a think it over is not a yes. I think it's absolutely awesome. Give me 24 hours to think about it is not a yes. And there's tons of things that sound pretty and good and make you feel good, but there's yeses. Everything else is a no. So just labeling it and calling it what it is does some amazing things.
I agree. And that's a subtle takeaway, because then it makes them kind of backpedal, right? And there's something about somebody wanting you. It's like, I want to be part of that group that doesn't want me. I don't know how to explain that. So it's human nature, right? You tell me no, and I want it that much more. So there's something really important to that. It was a great question, Dave, at the last minute. I'm glad to see that you got that in there. So, and it was a perfect answer by John. So I'm going to close it out here. Again, if you're on Facebook, I'll be on actually tomorrow with Haim, who is the virtual wholesale guy. We're going to do our repeat of flipper versus wholesaler, because now we flip-flop positions. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you come tomorrow with your questions at 2 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. And then for those of you listening to the podcast, just make sure you subscribe. Leave some good feedback if you like it. If you have questions or you have show topics, email me at donafliptalk.com. And of course, check out the Inner Circle Elite Mastermind if you feel like you need to be part of a community at beinthisroom.com. And until I talk to you again, have a wonderful day.